Welcome to the weekly swing low. It's February 20th, 2025. We have a special edition today. We're going to look at the most popular stocks on Twitter, on X, I should say, the 10 most popular. You can see them here. We're going to go with XOS first, then Palantir, PLTR, Supermicro, that's SMCI. We're going to do Walmart, WMT, Nvidia, NVDA, Carvana, CVNA, Tesla, TSLA, INTC, which is Intel, U, which is Unity Software, and finally Alibaba, that's BABA, BABA. And so we'll start with XOS, which is a electric car maker, up almost 100% as we're doing this. And this thing had just recently made an all-time low. This is really, we want to look at the price action, cut through the hype. So this thing has just been straight down since 2020, essentially. This is a monthly chart, mind you. And today we were up, double. It looks like there's some kind of, it's now available on some kind of government website, so it's going to be easier for people for agencies to order it. Let's look at the micro action. So we had this big gap. So let's just draw this line here. So we're down like that. Yesterday we're in the $3 range, and today we gap up and we open at, what is that, 443. So, and then we proceed to go all the way up to 850. Let me just hide this. And so we proceed to go all the way up to 850, and then we did a slow slide down. So that swing high occurred on these are 15-minute candles. I think if you're looking at intraday action, that's a very sort of actionable time frame. So let me just move this out of the way. So this candle marks the high for the day, and the low of that candle is $7.15. So once we cross below that, that was your swing high, telling you this rally here is now going to be contested. Now it hasn't been all given back because this rally starts, let's call it around the 423 area, and we're up here at 605. But it's very clear. You can see it visually. You got to stay above here, right? Like that's the way you play this, right? You don't chase this thing. Here is a potential accumulation zone. You know what your downside is, somewhere in the 570s. You position small here. Let's say we get some kind of false breakdown below this area. That would be the ideal entry, right? Like imagine a candle that does something like this and then just wicks back up. That would be kind of your ideal entry. And in terms of longer time frames, again, look, this is possibly a long-term bottom for this. It could also just be another lower high, like one of these. We're going to have to let the price action tell us. But right now, it's already erased like 4 or 5 months of decline. Let's just be clear. I mean, even with this big wick, because we've obviously retraced a lot, that's, the damage you saw on the 15-minute chart. We've basically erased all the price action going back to like August 2024. So this is an interesting one, new on my radar. Again, risk levels pretty clear in the 570s. We're up here at 609 right now. So that's XOS. Next is PLTR, Palantir. The joke is no one knows what this company actually does. So we were in price discovery, right? You're at all-time highs. The current all-time high is 125. And let's get into the daily chart. So one thing that we talk about is just understanding where we think these things might be within any kind of cycle. And this right now looks like a cycle that topped out after running for 24 days, right? We got this big gap down, but look, we now have a little hammer, and we'll zoom into the 15-minute chart. Again, that's probably the most actionable, but big picture, your low today is at 95.80. We're obviously a long way from there, like $10 up from that. So the reversal happened much earlier, and we'll look at it on the 15-minute chart. What does that tell us for the weekly, though? And so just to be clear, what we really want to see here is where are we in like some kind of weekly cycle? So this looks like a little small weekly cycle decline, and we're now starting a new cycle. This is your big up candle. And so ultimately, your first line in the sand is the low that we're printing right now on the daily, which is now also the low on this weekly. So again, that 95.80. But below that, you have this candle kind of holding up the whole rally. So any move to retest this wick here, which again is obviously this wick as well, is actionable, right? Like that's a potential long. The flip side of that is, again, we've topped in the daily cycle. The catch is the daily cycle decline could be relatively mild. It could be that it's almost over. We're just going to consolidate here for a little bit. So we'll be watching this one closely because again, we are in price discovery, again, as incredulous as everybody is about this stock. So that's Palantir. What about Super Micro? How are we looking? SMCI. So again, also just important, I'll start on the monthly chart for this one. Big picture, look at that. We have this big wick down, took out, lots of money lost here, right? Took out all these lows, right? All these lows taken out, right, with this wick, and now reversing up furiously. These 2 months, basically consolidation, and then you have this month, this February candle to the upside. Now, this has all the makings of something that's going to go back to all-time high, right? Like after this brutal decline, this pretty definitive low, and then you have it kind of wallows for 2 months. That wipes a lot of people out, tires a lot of people out. That's your monthly chart. How does that look on the weekly? Right, so on the weekly, you have this low right here. I mean, this looks pretty strong. It's like the daily chart is going to be one of your more actionable. So actually, sorry, let's go back to Palantir. We didn't look at the 15-minute chart just to kind of see where that reversal happened this morning. Yeah, so you can see this morning. So this morning you have the gap down, right? Like this is where we opened, and then you made a lower low. You consolidated inside this candle for a little bit. Like look at this big 15-minute candle. And so that's important. A retest of like the 103 area looks like a very probable thing, right? Like imagine, even if the low is going to hold, right? You imagine something like that, maybe even a probe below before you're zooming higher. So that's your chance to kind of get back on the train. But otherwise, that's essentially your stop area. If we get a definitive close below there, then that tells you, all right, this was your short term, this was your lower high, and we're going to continue the trend lower. So that's Palantir's 15-minute chart. And so going back to SMCI, we'll look at the daily and then the weekly, because as we talked about, it looks pretty bullish on the long term. But on the daily, this is really just consolidation, right? You have to be aware that there's a gap below down here. That's a little worrisome, right? Gaps tend to get filled. To be fair, yeah, I guess this gap didn't get quite filled. And there's another one right here. But I mean, this is so close, it's kind of tempting. So at the very least, you could see a move down to 50, 75. This is not super actionable. I mean, look at this. These are just doji candles the last couple of days. Let's look at what that looks like on the 15-minute chart, though. So on the 15-minute chart, where did we open the day? So we opened right here. And then we made that lower low, which just the market in general took a leg down. This is that leg down for most stocks. And then we broke out above that candle, and now we're back to that level. See, it's like Palantir. We just talked about how that's important to think about. This 15-minute candle, SMCI is retesting the high from that candle. Palantir hasn't yet. Doesn't mean it will, but so far we're actually starting to get a close below it. We are starting to trying to hammer. We have a red hammer. Let's see if it can turn green. But that gives you your line in the sand. Your 59.59, that's a funny number, 59.60, call it, in that area, 59 and a half. And truly, if you can break out above 62, then this thing has a chance to resume the uptrend. And this just becomes a potential pullback within the, this bullish up move, because pullbacks need to happen. Considering on the daily chart, we have been rallying for, it's only been 11 days. So if this were the top, that would mean we topped out on day 11 of the daily cycle, which is very bearish, because that means it's most likely going to be a left translated daily cycle. So that's important to watch. The next really clear sign of a lower high, which would be a close below 55.61. So that's your key level on PLTR, SMCI. 55.61, a close below that makes this a swing high on day 10, which is very ominous, especially for something that's rallied. I mean, look at the rally. It's rallied from essentially 25 to 60 in the daily cycle. So you think about what the 50% retracement is on that, like that would be something like down to here, right? That would be a 30% drop to get a 50% retracement of this move up. So which is to say, it would be perfectly normal and healthy. And notice how that's right below this gap here, which is starting to suggest the odds actually favor that we do visit that gap, and that could be a really cool buying opportunity. We'll keep an eye out for that. That's SMCI. What about Walmart? Not a good reaction to earnings. Whoa, look at this gap. We actually tweeted about this, that this had given us, we had a pretty clear signal here. Yikes. So now you have a gigantic gap, which is really good news for when this daily cycle bottoms and we get to, make the move up. So this looks like it's a pretty clear daily cycle high on day, what would it be? Call it day 20, something like that. And so we're pretty early in the decline. It also is most likely a weekly cycle top, right? Like, look at this. Just to be clear, we made a weekly swing high, excuse me. We'll make a weekly swing high with a close below 101.25. We could have a furious rally tomorrow to save the day. Let's see, right? 101.25 is the line in the sand. Now, maybe it'll be a milder pullback, like something like this. I mean, look at the size of this candle versus the size of these. This kind of tells you, we may be here a while. And your bigger question is this a longer term top? Like, look at that monthly chart, which, is the same story for the broader market. Like, are we getting to that longer term top? Like, is this big rally over? Doesn't mean we have to get a gigantic drop, but like, look at the distance from the 10 period moving average. This is your 10-month moving average. Look how far we are from that. We're like 16% above the 10-month moving average, which is, for a stock like Walmart, that's pretty crazy. So Walmart, weekly cycle decline. What about NVIDIA, NVDA? So for NVIDIA, we talked about this in our last update about SMH, about semis. NVIDIA, as you might imagine, kind of goes the same way semis do. So far we have a top on day 10. It's currently day 12. Your line in the sand, look at this. This is all consolidation. Below 137, call it, is to the downside, and then above 142. So this is all just a gigantic range. You get below 137, that tells you this was your daily cycle high, and look out below, because you'd expect, like if that's your daily cycle high, you have reason to believe this could also be your weekly cycle high right here, which is a lower high than this cluster here. So that would be bad news bears. But that's your immediate level. Watch that 137 to the downside. What about CVNA, Carvana? So Carvana, also another candidate for a long-term top. I'll remove this. So this thing has rallied for 26 months. Similar to the broader market, right? And the last 4 months, it's essentially put in a consolidation. Look at that. You notice these 4 candles are all in the same range. Now we have a green candle that's about to go red. If we drop below 240.97, we go red on the month. That's an important number to note. And we did not like earnings today. We got a gap down. This looks remarkably like the Walmart chart, doesn't it? So we have this big gap here now. And so the high for today is 267.65. So that kind of gives you a pretty clear, we got to get above that at the very least, and then we get back into gap territory. But the odds are very high that this is your daily cycle high here. Now, that doesn't mean go short this blindly. It just means you probably don't want to get long here, right? Like you'd be getting long right as a decline is starting. Now, that this is a stage where you watch for that swing low, because you could have a furious rally back. But wow, man, this is an inauspicious start to the daily cycle decline. And if we look at the weekly, are we also topping out in the weekly cycle? That's the really big question, because this looks like it's clearly a new weekly cycle, right? Like this is a big enough decline to wipe out sentiment, and this is clearly the start of a new weekly cycle. And so your big question is, Was the top, did we just get the top on week 7? Ooh, that's interesting. And so by closing below 258 tomorrow, right? Technically, this is actually a bearish outside candle because it made a higher high and now it's making a higher low, or lower low, excuse me. But this is your candle that was the previous high. Next week, we're going to open probably inside this range somewhere. Like if we look at the daily, I think we're bouncing a little bit, right? I mean, that's what this wick is. Let's look at the 15-minute chart. So this thing made a low at 234 and then it started to bounce. The first area of potential resistance to this new rally will be 250 is my guess, right? Because this is the first candle that makes that lower low. Remember, most things made a lower low for that second 15-minute candle, and this one made an even deeper lower low. But this thing looks like it's going to need to work this off. Again, daily cycle decline, most likely also weekly cycle decline for Carvana, CVNA. All right, Tesla, TSLA. How are we looking? So Tesla, this looks like a pretty clear weekly cycle decline. Now it's a question of like, this looked like, okay, this is definitely a potential reversal candle. This one is pretty clear. We've got to close above 362.70 on the week. That would give us a nice little swing. Anything below that, and it tells us we're probably still in weekly cycle decline. Notice we actually poked above that level and then could not hold it. What is that looking like on the daily chart? So on the daily chart, big implications here, right? Look at this deep decline, and then we got a nice little daily swing low by closing above this high here. So by closing above 349.37, we made a swing low. Problem is, we're now stalling out, but that creates a pretty clear line in the sand. If we drop below that 349, that 349.37 level, the swing low is no longer in place. And as long as we're below that, it is bearish. It suggests that this daily cycle actually topped out super early. And that means that this weekly cycle is probably still declining if the daily cycle is just starting to decline, obviously. So those are your levels for Tesla. What about Intel, INTC? So Intel appears to be, it's doing a similar thing to other semis. You know, we're on day 12. It's really just basically an inside day. We had a big up day on Tuesday. The range for that day was a low at 24.49 and a high at 27.55. And today we're putting in a little green hammer. Let's look on the 15-minute chart. Again, this is your lower low for that second candle, 15-minute candle of the day. But we've now rallied back above the high of that candle. The high of that candle is 25.51. So you want to watch that level. But very constructive here. We're making a higher low above that low. That's important. We're building structure, positive structure. So now that becomes your new line in the sand. If you wanted to play this, you just have to play. You just have to stay above 25, in the 25.60s. Give it some room, but that gives you kind of a level to play with. What does this mean on the weekly chart? Ooh, this looks ugly. Yikes. But we do have a potential double bottom here. You see this cluster of lows holding to where this cluster of lows is now a rebound. We really need price to get above here, and then, you know, could be quick work to like this level around the high, like, you know, low 30s. All right, we're going to close out with Unity Software, and then BABA. So Unity Software, oof, this thing is down bad, but this could be a reversal. So your all-time low is at 1390, so we're already quite a ways above there, almost a double off that. So the potential here is pretty good, actually. This could be the 6th month of a new long-term cycle, like this being the bottom. Obviously, it could also be that this is going to peter out just like this little rally did and like this little rally did. But so far, that part is promising. On a daily chart, we have a big gap. I believe we just reported earnings. That's right. So the market liked it. Ooh, nice big long green candle. That's beautiful. So the low of this candle is 24.49. I would not chase it. I mean, I personally wouldn't. Let's look at what's happening on the 15-minute chart. This is one you know, ideally you'd have to catch in real time, obviously. On the 15-minute chart, oh, there was your chance. So the first 3 candles of the day didn't really do anything. This candle right here was when most things made a lower low. This did not make a lower low. It actually held. And then the next candle also held. And when I say held, I mean, it was just an inside, like, look, notice these 2 candles are an inside candle of this candle. and then boom, it kind of goes up, up, up. So like, yeah, you could play this here with a stop below like basically 27. The safer move would be let it come in, right? Get in closer to another swing low, but you could definitely play it this way. You take the risk of getting stopped out, obviously, and then you could always kind of enter back in. So that's Unity Software. Actually, not a bad entry here. And bigger picture doesn't mean this thing is going all the way back to 200, but there's a lot of room to the upside potentially. Let's look at, and also like just thinking about the medium term, which is super important. This is early in a daily cycle, right? Like this is just day 5, right? Like this is your daily cycle low. I mean, look at this crazy decline. So again, be careful chasing this thing, but once it settles out, I mean, this is a huge gap. So we could even get a gap fill. It doesn't even have to be a full gap fill. We can just kind of dip into this area. So just be careful here. But we're relatively early in a new cycle. I'm going to take a little shot here. Here's the only little bit of kind of fly in the ointment. I would have loved for this to be kind of a deeper, like this is still kind of a mature rally, like on a weekly level. I mean, hence the 6 months of bottoming with on the monthly. So I would, obviously you'd love to be buying more like down here or something like that. But I mean, this wick gives you nice protection. I mean, look at how it flushes out this series of lows. This thing looks like it's gonna make its move again. Not necessarily back to all-time highs, but I like this one here. And finally, BABA, BABY. So BABA, wow, it's been rallying in the weekly cycle. So this is, I mean, wow, look at how vertical that is too. Oof. So it's only week 5, but I mean, just straight up, it's completely erased the decline. You want to see that. That's bullish. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a retrace back around that level to make a sort of healthy higher low, something like this eventually. It doesn't have to be not, I mean, you get the picture, like some dip below there and then a move back up. So like, again, just that it's already kind of pulling back. Let's see what's happening on the daily chart. So on the daily chart, yeah, we got a big wick. So yeah, speaking of playing this, tomorrow is going to be open as an inside day. So that actually gives you a lot to play with, right? So you have a high of 144.55 and a low of 131. So like a $13 range. Looks like we're going to open around like the midpoint. And then you look at your 15-minute candles to kind of understand, all right, where's your line in the sand? So this is, most things in the market made a lower low on the second candle. This one actually made a higher high, but then it pulled back. And these basically become like this whole structure. It's almost like this whole structure is a bearish outside candle, right? Because it made a higher high above this high, and then it's now made a lower low below that low. And so one safer way to play this is wait for price to close back above this level here. So, excuse me, this low, which is 137.51. So price can, let's say price, it looks like it's trying to hold a higher low here. Let's say it does something like this, right? That becomes your entry, right? Somewhere around here, or, even safer, like somewhere like here with your stop down here or somewhere like that. But long term, let's see, on the monthly, this thing is, the implication is that this thing bottomed back here. This was a successful retest, and here we go. And then you have this other higher low here. So this is looking pretty good in terms of like this whole thing being a sort of bottoming pattern, if you will. So those are your 10 most popular stocks on Twitter for today. I'll see if this was helpful. Definitely make some comments. I can do this again if this format is kind of helpful. Thanks for watching.